Ready for a little bonus content? We are going to talk about some yarn alternatives for the upcoming Pride Knitalong. So I will see you on the other side. Welcome to this mini bonus episode of Gary Knits, Gary Rides, a craftivism podcast at the corner of making things and doing good. My name is Gary. I am a knitter and a crocheter and a cyclist with AIDS Lifecycle, a 7-day, 545-mile bike ride from San Francisco to Los Angeles, raising money for the Los Angeles LGBT Center and the San Francisco AIDS Foundation. As part of my fundraising, I run a series of Knitalongs and Crochet-alongs, and that's what we're going to talk about today. If you saw me on Instagram, where I am Gary Knits, Gary Rides, you can also find me on Ravelry at GaryKnitsAndRides. But if you saw me on Instagram this last week, we announced the dyer and designer for the upcoming End AIDS Knitalong Pride 23 edition. I sat down with Samantha from A Whimsical Wood Yarn Co., who is both the designer and the dyer for this project. And this is a project I'm very excited about because it's an assigned pooling project. It's been very popular over the last couple of years to do these type of projects, which use a yarn that has a big stretch of a main color and then a little burst of a contrast color, or in this case, several contrast colors. And then when you get to that stitch in the pattern, you do a special, or you get to that color in the pattern, I should say, you do a special little stitch and it creates these little blobs and bursts of color in the otherwise the main color background. So I've been very excited about doing this project, and I think you are going to be as well. So the project we're going to be working on is called the Pin Up Rainbows Shawl. I'll pop a picture of it in here. Samantha designed this for the use of one of her yarns that had a gray background with these little mini rainbow bursts in there, where you do a special stitch that actually creates a little mini rainbow. We're not going to be using that gray-based yarn. She came up with two special colorways for the Knitalong. The first one is called Proud of Our Asses, End AIDS Knitalong 2023. I'll post a picture of it up here. It is a off-white with speckles and then that burst of rainbow color. And then the second colorway that she did is called Let's Get Off Our Asses and End AIDS. And that is this gorgeous navy tonal with the burst of rainbow color. So if you saw the Instagram live that I did with her, or you've been watching my podcast for the last couple of episodes, you know that there were going to be very limited numbers of these yarn kits available. And as of right now, so I'm filming this 7:41 on Sunday evening, there are only 2 of the navy kits left, and that's up on my Coffee page. They're there for $68, which includes 2 skeins of the yarn, which are $29 at wholesale, and then $3 entry ticket into the Knitalong, $5 for shipping, and then a $31 donation to AIDS Lifecycle. So there are only 2 of those kits left. They're probably going to be sold out by the time I get this edited and posted. And so as a result, I wanted to give you all some additional options for assigned pooling yarn that I think would work great with this project. If you have a source for assigned pooling yarn, one, drop a comment down below, because I'd love to see what else is out there. I just did some quick searching on the internet to try to find dyers who had yarn available or did dye to order, where I thought you'd be able to pick up 2 skeins of fingering weight yarn to make this project and be able to get that in hand for the June 1st cast on. I should have probably said up front, if you're not familiar, the Pride Knitalong runs from June 1st until July 31st. So with that said, and the fact that we're probably not going to have any of Whimsical Wood's yarn left to sell, I wanted to give you some additional options for yarn that would work for this assigned pooling pattern. The first one is my friend Laura at Always Be Kind Yarn. She has been a big supporter of my Knitalongs and Crochet-alongs. In fact, last year during the Pride Knitalong, we used some of her self-striping sock yarn to make the first ever sock cowl that I've done as one of my Knitalongs. It was a beautiful inclusive pride rainbow striped sock that was a lot of fun to work on last summer. She also, in addition to doing fantastic self-striping yarn, she has some other colorways that are set up for assigned pooling. And in fact, she's very familiar with this particular little rainbow stitch because she incorporated it in a hat that she designed for herself. So there's several of her colorways. The first one is that I'm going to post up here is called Dark Side of the Moon Rainbow Shorties. Has the rainbow color burst on a dark gray background. She also has one called Cloudy with a Chance of Rainbows. Here's the photo. That's a lighter gray, again with that rainbow burst. And then finally, at the other end of the spectrum, just a pure off-white or cream, looks like a cream base. And that was called Taste the Rainbow. So I think she has some other colorways that might actually work, and she's extremely helpful. So I think, and she's very familiar, as I said, not only with this pattern, but she knows what's going on with this Knitalong. So I think that if you reach out to Laura at Always Be Kind Yarn, she would be able to help you out with whichever other colorways in her collection that would work for this pattern. Again, as written, it takes 200-gram skeins of a fingering weight yarn, although the pattern is very customizable. If you wanted to do it in DK or you wanted to do it in worsted, and you could find an assigned pooling yarn in either of those weights, you could definitely do it. You're just going to need to add additional skeins to get to the size that you want. And you could also just keep going. If you wanted to make it a 3-skein shawl, you could definitely do that. It's one of those patterns where you can kind of stop at any point. But Samantha has said that 2 full skeins, 2 full 100-gram skeins will make a very nice size, shawl. So that's what I've been focused on, are just fingering weight yarns that seem to be available currently in the market or available for dyed to order. So that was Always Be Kind Yarn. Go chat with Laura. She'll hook you up with some beautiful yarn. The second one is Joshua at Blu Fiber. That's BLU Fiber. He has several assigned pooling style yarns. One of them is a rainbow. It's called Show Your Pride. So it is the very traditional pride rainbow on a medium gray base, and that looked to be available right now on his Etsy shop. I'm not sure how many skeins of it there are available, but he had several others. One was called Burst, which was a light gray with a orange and magenta and yellow color burst, and then the other one that I really thought was pretty was called Absinthe Burst, and it's this lime green with kind of a red and orange burst of color. I think I have a picture of that one as well. I'll post it up here if I do. So that is Blu Fiber. Again, everything is going to be listed down below in the show notes with links to these folks' websites or Etsy shops or whatever the case may be. So you can go check them all out and kind of see which one works with whatever you're trying to create. Some of these are going to have that sort of on-the-nose rainbow color burst that kind of will create that little rainbow, but that might not be your cup of tea. And so there's some others in here that are going to be, different colors in that color burst, some that are more tonal that I'll show you here in a minute. I actually have a couple in-house to show you. But the next one I want to talk about, and I actually do have this one, is from a new to me dyer out of Idaho called Blue Barn Fiber Arts. There is the label. And this is there somewhere over the rainbow colorway. So it's this pale gray within, again, very traditional rainbow burst of color there. These are dyed to order. So I put in my order for this, I think it was a week and a half ago, and I already have it in hand. This is actually going to be the giveaway prize for the grand prize for the spring Knitalong. The FO prize in the Knitalong is going to be a bunch of yarn, and this is going to be in there. So someone will be able to jump into the Pride Knitalong with yarn already. I bought this on her 75 15 10 base. So that's 75% superwash merino, 15% cashmere, 10% silk. So this is very soft and luxurious yarn. It feels great. Customer service was fantastic. Again, I said this is a new to me dyer. I'd never seen their yarn or ordered it from them before. Had a very, very good experience. Good communication where they had some questions on what exactly I was looking for on some of the other yarn I bought, and it worked out really well. Got it to me pretty quickly. So I think that would be a great option. They have many, many different variations on this assigned pooling theme in their Dyed to Order section. So I think you'd be able to kind of pick out something that worked for you. Again, Blue Barn, there we go. Blue Barn Fiber Arts out of Idaho. I believe it's a husband and wife, a wife team. Had a great experience with them. The next one is kind of the name that you think of, or at least that I think of when you think of assigned pooling, and that is Barker Wool. If you go to the Barker Wool website, she has a bunch of assigned pooling yarn up there for sale now. None that have this sort of rainbow feel to it, but if you were looking for something that didn't quite have that pride on the nose feeling to it, she has very lovely yarn available there. She also has a collaboration with Madelinetosh for some more, what I would say, sort of like edgy or funky colors. One of them is my favorite. This is one of the Madelinetosh collaborations. It's called Seated Ballerina. I think this would be really cool. It has more of a speckled base within like a solid contrasting color. So those little bursts are going to be little blobs of this dark color on a lighter background. And I think that's really cool. They have another one I think called Comic Book Art that's got a light background with this like highlighter yellow burst of color, which I also thought was pretty cool. So that's Barker Wool and then the Madelinetosh Barker Wool collaboration. Again, links are all down below. Sort of back on the rainbow end of things, a new to me dyer as well called Forgotten Fiber on their shop. They have several that have grays, medium and light grays with the rainbow. The picture that I took down from the website is this one, and this is for their Trans Pride dark colorway. So it has a dark base within the Trans Pride color flag colors on that, which I thought was really cool. They also do one for Bi Pride. So I thought if you wanted to get away from the more sort of traditional gay rainbow flag and wanted to take a bi or trans flag and do a shawl with that, this would be a way to do that. So that is Forgotten Fibers. Then another one that has a lot of varieties to choose from, but none of which are specifically rainbow, is Quixotic Fibers is the name of the website of the company, but they have a bunch of yarn from Dream in Color yarn, who are the dyers. And the one I popped up here is called Gold Record Blues. I thought that was really, really pretty. I think that would make a really stunning shawl if you wanted to, again, to get away from the kind of rainbow vibe of the colorways that Samantha dyed up. I thought that was a great option, but they have a ton of different, I think they're probably like 12 or 13 colorways that they have there in the fingering weight, some of which are an MCM blend, I believe. So there's some that have some cashmere in there if you want to go luxe. And then something that more on the more tonal side of things. The first one there I would say is Passion Knits. They have a collection called the Coloring Book Collection, which is, I'll pop a picture of it here, but you can see it is a light version of a color like an orange, sort of kind of washed out orange, and then the pop of color is just a super saturated point of that. So it's going to be a more tonal overall project where you're going to have those bursts of that, the more saturated, color. So that's Passion Knits Coloring Book Collection. Along that same line, and I have these here as well, although not as purely tonal, but my friend Caitlin at Porter Wool Co., who I was able to see not this weekend, but last weekend for LA Yarn Crawl. She was at my local yarn store, which is the Knitting Tree LA, and she had some assigned pooling yarns, and I was able to grab some of those, and I put them in the latest D-Stash for Good auction, and they sold like that. I put them in a little section of yarn that I was able to get my hands on that I thought would work well with this Pinup Rainbows shawl, but all of those sold instantly at the buy now price, so you can't get your hands on them there. But I spoke with Caitlin today, and she's just getting back from another trunk show for local yarn store day this weekend in Delaware, and she said she's going to be headed back into the studio. She's going to re-inventory, what she has from both of her trunk shows and just start doing some dyeing. And sometime in the next couple of weeks, she will have some of her assigned pooling yarn back up in the shop. So the two colors I wanted to show you, this one is called Deep End, and that's pretty true. It is a really beautiful kind of teal, dark teal blue within a lighter, not quite seafoam, but kind of minty green as the contrasting color. Again, I think that would make a really beautiful, more tonal version of this assigned pooling project. And then the second one that I have is called Popsicle, and you can probably see why. It's what I would call sort of a orange sherbety kind of base color within this bright bubblegum pink burst of color. So this is Popsicle. This is Deep End from Porter Wool Co. Again, she will probably have these back up on her website in the next couple weeks or so, which still gives you plenty of time to get those and have them in hand for the June 1 cast on. This is on her 75-25 base, so you get 463 yards per 100 grams. So 2 skeins is going to make a nice size shawl. And these are $28 a piece. Caitlin said that if you order her assigned pooling yarn and put the note in there that you are using them in the End AIDS Knitalong, she will make a small donation to AIDS Lifecycle. So she's incredibly generous. She's already been super generous. If you remember, she was the dyer for last year's Pride Crochet Along. She put together a beautiful set for the Ellie Rue shawl. But she just said if you mentioned that in the note that she would throw in a couple bucks to AIDS Lifecycle for ordering this yarn for your assigned pooling project. So that's fantastic as well. The last one, oh no, 2 more. So another one that has a pretty wide variety, I would say there's probably 10 to 12 different options, is Frabjous Fibers, Frabjous Fibers. Also, I think it's called like, somehow it's Wonderland Knits or Wonderland Yarn or something is part of it as well, but I think the website is Frabjous Fibers, which is a mouthful. And they have like 10 or 12 different variations. Some that kind of have a little bit of a rainbow feel to them. Others that are more kind of like these tonal ones or just completely, different types of colors. It's their Color Burst collection. Again, I'll link to that directly down below so you can click right through it and see what's going on. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, because I know all of the dyers that I have mentioned so far are US based, and that is prohibitively expensive to get shipped elsewhere. There is a dyer I found in the UK the website is called The Wool Kitchen, and they had a whole range of assigned pooling yarns as well. And I don't have the name. I meant to get it, and it's on my phone, which I'm using as a camera. But there is also a dyer that I just saw in the last week or so. I believe she's in the Netherlands. I will link down to it below. But if you're in the EU, that might be an option for you as well. So those are just a quick rundown of some of the sources for assigned pooling yarn that I was able to find relatively quickly, but seemed to be in stock or able to be dyed to order relatively quickly, so you could get those in hand if you missed out on the very short window to purchase the kits that I had available from Whimsical Wood. So, but if you're a dyer or if you know of other sources of assigned pooling yarn that people get their hands on, please drop a comment down below. I would love to get the word out about those as well. If for whatever reason you're in some part of the world, or you are on, as someone said today, they are not out buying new yarn, but you still want to participate in this Pride Knitalong. An option that I would like to make available to folks is to knit up. Whimsical Wood Yarn Co. Has a hat pattern called the Scribbles hat, and it has the same vibe as assigned pooling. So it's a base color, and then you do these little cluster stitches, but you're using a separate yarn for those. So and she has instructions in the pattern on sort of how to carry that through. But if you use a highly variegated yarn with a lot of color in it, you're going to get that same idea of these little rainbow stitches, but you're able to do it with 2 separate yarns. And it could be, and it doesn't even have to be a rainbow. You could use whatever yarns you have in your stash. I believe that pattern is written for DK weight as well as fingering weight, so you could really dig into your stash and try to find some yarn. It doesn't. I think it takes like 50 grams of each if you're doing it in the DK weight or the fingering weight. So it's a perfect stash buster kind of thing to pick that one main color and then something that highly contrasts and kind of get the same idea. So you're welcome to make the Scribbles hat. If for whatever reason you don't have access to assigned pooling yarn or the energy to make the entire shawl, that is totally another option. For both of these, you will need to get an entry ticket from my coffee page. They're $3 a piece. That's just how I do the fundraising part of the Knitalongs sometimes, especially when we're using existing patterns. And it's a way for me to keep track of who is eligible for giveaway prizes. So with that, I want to thank you for spending a few minutes to learn about some additional assigned pooling yarns that you can use for the upcoming End AIDS Knitalong Pride 23 edition. If there are any questions, please feel free to DM me below. If for whatever reason you haven't yet, I would love it if you could like this episode and subscribe to my channel. It helps me continue to grow this community. I will be back with you at the end of this week with a regularly scheduled episode as I prepare to head out to Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. So until then, thanks so much. Have a great evening.